Hello, hello. I thought you were starting. Welcome to another week of Black Atlantic. This is Hillary in high definition.
And my name is Clinton. And if this is the best looking episode of Black Atlantic you've ever seen, it's because we are broadcasting live from CHMA FM down in Sackville, New Brunswick. And we just went through a nightmare of technical difficulties getting this set up. But
That's okay.
If not for the amazing help of the station manager here, James Anderson, we wouldn't be here broadcasting live with you today.
Of course. Our guest today is Faycal Kilali. Let me put him on the screen now that I've got fancy technology. We're going to be hearing more from him soon and more about why we're even recording today in the first place. But first...
Well, before I play the intro, so you can hear us every week, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on CHMA FM, YouTube, and all your streaming softwares providers. Please subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, leave a comment, let us know what you think of this episode if you're a regular watcher. And let's get into the show.
And we're back. So first of all, Faycal, thank you so much for being so patient. Welcome to the show. I guess I'll start by explaining why we're doing this today and not another day. So the long story short, if you're following me on Instagram or Facebook, you will see that I was outside of Havelock, New Brunswick, going to a baby shower. Instead of going back through to the city, it told me to take some back farm, but paved, highway-ish looking roads to essentially get to my godmother's cottage, which is in an area called Sainte-Marie-de-Kent, past Saint-Antoine, which is past Irish Town, if you are local to here. And the long story short is eventually that paved road turned into a dirt road. And I drove by a sign that said road closed, but I, for some reason, because I was still moving, was like, it can't be for this road. There's no barricade. And then I went through the bumpiest road of my life, through, I think, a hornet's nest, until finally I got to a point where I was like, I should probably call some adults. That's when I realized, because obviously I hadn't been looking at my phone the whole time, that I had no service to call the real adults. Then I got service. I called the adults. They said, you should probably turn around even though you're only 10 minutes away. And I got the car stuck in about a foot of mud. Then it took them 2.5 hours to find me. They found me. It took them another 3 hours to try to find the car, at which point their truck got stuck. And my big brother, Mike, then hiked 11 kilometers out until he found help to save the truck. They showed up at 2 a.m. No one died. And then they, in the morning, used a forklift to get my car out. And this is a borrowed vehicle. Get the car out of mud so that I could drive it here. And the long story short is that all saga ended at 2 p.m. And we were supposed to be doing this interview with Faycal at, I believe, 12:30 that day. So that didn't happen. So we are here now, car undamaged, humans alive, Faycal present. Welcome to the show. Womp womp.
I feel like to our listeners, I think we need to post some of those photos of you being stuck in the mud just for context.
Absolutely. We will definitely share some of those selfies later.
But no, let's get into it.
Yes.
Faycal, pronounced Faycal.
Either way, you could pronounce it as Faycal if you want.
I was going to say in the country that you're from, but I'm going to let you talk about that. But yeah, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good today, actually.
Amazing.
Good. Again, well, yeah, thank you so much for your patience. We've learned so much about you in the hour and a half that we've been setting up that we will be less shock and awe as we learn about you. I'll provide the context that you came to Collision in Toronto. You met my best friend and former guest, Ivor Pinder, who gave me your car just because it's at Sackville, New Brunswick. And as he, I think, assumed we probably knew each other because of how I've described New Brunswick. And I was like, I don't, which also begets the question, which we will get to later, around our show being called Black Atlantic, him knowing that you had melanin and not knowing exactly where you were from, but was like, a brother of color in Toronto from New Brunswick, you must go on this show. And so we've had some conversations about that, but we'll start with you. Tell us and our listeners a bit more about yourself and how you ended up in Sackville, New Brunswick.
Oh, that's an excellent question that might have a very long answer. So
we've got time. If you still have time, we're committed to this episode. So Please go ahead.
Right. So I'll give you the short story, but I can give you more details
Sure.
as I go. If you would like.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I came here because I wanted to educate myself. Specifically, I wanted to go to university, right? And among my goals, I planned this for more than 8 years actually,
Mhm.
was to work to save enough money for university,
Mhm.
and that's what I've done. I worked for several years, invested my money, and applied for university. Now I'm here.
Mhm.
So this is a very long-term plan, more than 8 years, in fact. And I'm here to pursue a double honors in mathematics and computer science. The real reason why I'm doing this is, honestly, because I feel like having life, I don't just, I don't just want to live it. I want to essentially accomplish my biggest ambitions.
Mhm.
In a way, I'm endlessly ambitious. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to get educated. I'm here to push humanity towards advanced technologically and socially, maybe in the space industry. And I'm here to make it happen.
Amazing. You haven't told
Wow.
our listeners though where you even came from.
True. Yeah, true. So I'm from Africa, specifically from a country called Morocco. It's in the north side of
Mhm.
Africa. And I've only lived there for about 2 years, my whole life. Most of my life was actually in the Middle East.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But from what I understand, and please correct me because I don't know your life story fully, but was Morocco where you lived last before coming to Sackville? So you were born in the Middle East?
I was born in Africa. I was born in Morocco.
Okay.
And I went back to Morocco in February 2022. I stayed there until September.
Okay.
Then I came here to Moncton and Sackville. Well, I passed through Moncton because it's the airport.
Yes, so did I.
There you go.
Yeah. So whereabouts in the Middle East did you live?
That's a good question. So I lived in this place called. Now here's the thing. Before I continue further, right? So that's only I'm not religious, okay?
Sure.
But I lived in a place called Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, it was
Mecca, right?
yeah.
That's fair. Yes. I mean, for just because you don't know, so my dad's Muslim, but I was baptized Catholic. So like I sort of understand, but I also don't understand. Because I've lived there, but I get it that must have been an experience.
Yeah, it's a very religious country. Very religious.
Yeah. So in terms of laws, equality and women's rights and restrictions, is that what you mean, or
And
being able to live freely or just
Yeah,
do whatever you
there's-
want on a daily basis?
there's no human rights. Yeah, there's actually no human rights there. And technically, I'm in a apostate because of less about religion. So like over there, I feel I've actually been arrested for that. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've heard stories about that as well. There's an organization called Ex-Muslims of North America and everything like that. Have you heard of them?
yeah, I've heard of them.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So you grew up between Morocco and Saudi Arabia. You decided to come over here to Canada to go to school because of your ambitions. That's quite an interesting story. What made you choose Sackville, New Brunswick, and Mount Allison?
Right, that's a good question. So this is probably this is something that's not a lot of people know about me, but it's an interesting story, so I'll tell you a bit about it. Perfect. So before I actually came to Mount Allison, well, let's run back. Let's run back to like when I was 5, 6 years old. All right.
Well, because I was gonna say, like, based on the math, if you're in your first year, and I mean, time could have allowed, so you're 20, younger than 20.
I'm 27.
You're
Okay, right. Huh?
Never mind everything that I was gonna say. Never mind. Go on.
All right, so let's take it back to you're 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Let's take it back. We're taking it back a while ago.
Okay.
Right. So I've only been to kindergarten before I came to university for a total of 2 days, actually. And the reasoning is, I'm not really sure, besides that my father doesn't want to teach anyone in our family, but that's fine. Right. So what I did was I was curious about what you were saying in movies and video games, because that's all I did.
Mhm.
I said radio during that time. I couldn't really conversate with people. I
Mhm.
didn't understand their local language. And anyway, I was curious. I'm actually teaching myself, through my curiosity, English by seeing the way they spoke and they actually spoke in video games and movies.
Okay.
That's how I made a makeshift structure of English that I built upon from that point onwards.
Mhm.
And using that, as well as my father's computer,
Mhm.
it kind of snowballed. I was able to teach myself mathematics, philosophy, and so on. And that made me question a lot of what's going on in the world. And it also made me realize who I am at that point. And that's when I started planning for the future. That's when I started working for myself. Essentially, from 13 years old, I realized I had to care for myself. And that's what I started doing. When I hit 18, I started working some small jobs. Then I became fully employed in 19, I think. 1918.
Wow.
So okay.
So yeah, that was definitely a take back there. So
So when you apply to university, I guess without sound, and I don't want this to sound rude at all, but like in terms of proving yourself to be able to get in, because obviously here you have to submit records from your elementary, your middle, your high school, all of these things. But you would have had no, like, what legal documentation did you have to provide if you'd only done kindergarten and then you self-taught yourself everything else? Like, did you make your own certificates? That's all. How did you get here? How did you do this? I'm so perplexed.
That's a good question.
you self-educated yourself to the point where after a couple of years of kindergarten, what Hillary is asking, you were
Yeah.
able to prove that
yeah,
you were
like-
capable of attending a university. And what are you studying again?
I'm
Math.
pursuing double honors in mathematics and computer science.
Okay, yeah, we gotta hear.
Yeah. So yeah, how does Mount Allison approve you? What? And I mean, clearly you're doing it, so good for them to have done that. But please,
This
what?
is really fascinating.
Oh my god!
Mind blown at the moment.
Yeah,
All right. No, I understand. I get it.
you said ambush, and we thought you were joking. But now I feel like I'm part of the Spanish Inquisition, being like, so how did you get to here?
That's funny. Okay, so I did get my GED. I took the general education diploma exam,
Okay.
administered by the USA. I think it was their defense department or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Education department, I think. And that's equivalent to a high school diploma for the USA. Yeah. So that was one of the main pieces of the puzzle that I knew I needed, and of course, I studied for that over the years. I got that a few years ago. I also took the ACT exam, and I did pretty well in that actually. Besides that, I showed them some of my previous works that I've done. Before I came to university, I actually studied mathematics ahead of time. I pretty much covered first and second year ahead of time, and I took notes in a scripting language called LaTeX, which basically you can essentially make textbooks that look really nice. That's essentially what I did. I showed that to the admissions office. You were very impressed, and I managed to get admission that way.
Wow. So you made your own textbooks. Like you showed them that
Yo.
you.
This is wild.
Wait, let me.
I dropped out of school. Like, okay.
Let
I
me.
need to check my humbleness at the door. Okay. Oh,
I want to make a correction. Here.
Sure.
So they're almost textbook level, but they're just my personal notes over what I've learned. I haven't actually released this publicly.
are you considering?
The way you organized all your knowledge that you attained yourself throughout your life, and the way you kept track of it was to organize it into a book.
Well, I did it personally for myself, so I can review and learn as I go. I might in the future, I might release it, but for now, it's just for me essentially.
That's so interesting.
Wow. And how you liking?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Where does the episode go from
instead
here?
of like just 2 minutes of silence while we try to process
So,
it.
yeah.
So you came to Sackville.
Yeah, and what we found out before the show is you haven't spent a lot of time in Moncton. You have done some other Canadian city visiting, which is lovely. What I was asking though more sincerely, and of course this is not to poo-poo on any organization, but considering all of this amount of education you've been able to do for yourself and then prove yourself through a faux textbook of sorts of like the level of competency you have, and you're doing a double honor. How is the school keeping up with your level of intellect in terms of keeping you stimulated through your education process?
Okay, so I want to say I'm not a prodigy. I still make mistakes. Like, I'm not getting a 4.0.
Oh, sorry,
I'm working on that.
3.7 because I had a 2.4. Listen.
I'm essentially, I try to improve every day. That's what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I make mistakes. There's been a few cases where I feel like there's a lack of ambitious people around here. But besides that, honestly, like you no, that's not what I mean. That's not. I mean like in general in the university. But it makes sense. It's a small university. It's an arts university, so it makes sense. But I do want to mention that university really is what you make out of it. It's the way you take out of it is what I'm trying to say. And I'm trying to maximize what I take out of it. So what people are doing, whether they are ambitious or not, whether they go party every weekend, at the end of the day, that's I'm trying not to let that affect me, and make my own, focus on my own goals, my own ambitions. Of course, I still try to enjoy every second of my life. But.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I mean, the Maritimes does have a reputation of being a laid-back kind of place, right? You asked me why I moved out here, and I said I was looking to slow down, right? So, you, without offending anyone, you don't necessarily get the same level of motivation and hustle and drive. I'm not talking about the university either, that you get in other places in the world, or in Toronto or Montreal or Vancouver, places you said you're interested in moving to. But I mean, what you're saying makes sense. You sound very self-motivated, and you moved to a place that is known for being laid back. So how are you reconciling that? But again, I think we partially asked this, like, how has it been coming to Canada? How's Sackville? I know you went to Toronto. How was that? Tell the people the contrast between Saudi Arabia and Morocco and here.
All right, so no bullshit. Straight up.
Straight facts.
Straight back.
Straight facts, Quentin says. All right.
Definitely no bullshit.
Yeah.
So, Saudi Arabia. Okay, Saudi Arabia is an interesting place. It's it can be one of the worst places to live in. But if you have a lot of money, any place can be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, money will certainly make Canada better if we only had it.
So, so the contrast between, I think it would be a good way to exhibit this is to show you explain the contrast between Saudi Arabia and Morocco. Then I can, from there, exhibit the contrast between Morocco and Canada. So between Saudi Arabia and Morocco is the benefits. The only benefit I've seen really in Saudi Arabia is you can make more money there. Okay, it's not a country that is suffering poverty really, but even that is questionable, because if you're a foreigner, especially from a third world country, you're probably going to be treated like dirt, right? In my case, it was different because I spoke English really well, and over there is this bias where if you sound like an American, you're going to get treated really nice. So in my case, in my case, and also because I had some good connections with some big people there, I was able to essentially, not have an experience like that. Too bad of an experience. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, when I was in Saudi Arabia, my goal really was to save enough money and get out, because generally I will never want to live there. Right. Like more than a single hour more than I have to, or a single second more than I have to.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Anyway, when I went back to Morocco in February, which was I didn't move back to Morocco until I was. So the only times I was in Morocco was when I was born, and I think when I was like 9 or 10, for like less than a year.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then when I quit my job from Saudi Arabia, because I was like done working in February 2022.
Mhm.
And when I moved back to February 2022, I was old enough at that point. There is a big contrast. The people there are nicer, first of all. Girls there can actually, you can actually see them. So that's that's a big thing, right?
Plus.
Yeah. Plus you can talk with them, and
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's not happening in Saudi Arabia.
no, that does not happen.
I also have a question, and not to interrupt. Don't you keep talking about
Yeah.
Morocco too? But I'm curious because you mentioned how that like anyone English speaking who seems like they might be American, and I would assume therefore Canadian, are sort of looked up to or treated nicer. But assuming that Americans and Canadians who come might still uphold Christian views, are those people like? Is it supposed to be forced on them as well? Any religious or Muslim, wearing a hijab or any type of respect that way, or is it only people who they assume are Saudi Arabia or from an African country, third world country that have to do that?
So the way I've noticed living in Saudi Arabia for a long time is rules apply differently depending on where you're from.
Okay.
Right. And also which city you're in. If you're in Riyadh, which is where I spent most of my life, you're almost certainly going to be living in a compound, completely split off the local population. If you're from the USA or Canada, mainly because they don't want you to walk around without a hijab.
Right.
But if you're like in one of the other cities, which are slightly more liberal here, it's not really a thing over there.
Right.
But yeah, I've seen like in Dammam, I've seen American women without a hijab just walking around the street, and they're not exactly split off. So it's different, and it's different there. Yeah, but in Riyadh it's very strict, and I think it's the same in Mecca and some other cities. Besides that,
as you were saying about Morocco.
Yeah, so Morocco also has quite a lot of flaws. I'll tell you that. I mean, I told you the good things in the contrast. The contrast, the good things, right? Some of the flaws, for instance, is it's actually illegal to have a girlfriend in Morocco or a boyfriend. You can only be married to them. Yeah, and
so arranged marriages.
Illegal.
Arranged marriages, yes.
So is it like it's not like you court them, like you don't get to go to the house and get to know them, sit in the foyer like they did it here in America like 100 years ago. You watch those old movies, right? It's all about courting. You ask permission and you sit there with mom and dad in the other room. Not even that, huh? It's just arranged marriage.
It's arranged marriage. You can, of course, like if their family is fine with them, you can visit them with their families there. I mean, people usually don't follow this rule. They still
and it must
still hook up.
Differ your social status, maybe that you're in, or different cities. Is it all across Morocco? It can't be
exactly
that restrictive.
Yeah, well, I mean, by law, it is illegal.
Because I know Moroccan people who moved here and they were already a couple.
But that's probably why they moved.
Yeah, it could have been that they were secret the whole time in Morocco, and then they came to Canada to be able to live in public, right?
So the way it usually happens in Morocco is people marry off their daughters for money or like a prize,
like a dowry.
Yeah,
that's what they used to do over here on this side of the world.
My dad has a bag of rice right now that he's waiting to give to whichever brother from Senegal I choose.
Which lucky guy.
Which, I mean, he's going to meet my non-Senegalese boyfriend at some point, but there is a bag of rice, and it literally says on it, for Hillary's bachelor. And it's just sitting there, and I was like, was this to try your phone? He's like, no, that's for whatever man we get for you. It's a bag of rice, and hopefully that's enough. And I was like, this is what I'm worth. Oh. Anyway.
Throwing some ox and
oh my god,
and family jewels and everything, though.
Please don't say it. You don't know what I had to do for the family jewels I got. The COVID had to happen, and my grandma had to be like, I thought I was gonna die. Take the jewels. So anyway.
But I mean, marriage traditionally was viewed as like a business transaction, a way to grow your family, to maybe secure land, kingdoms and stuff like that. And that's very problematic that they turn human life into the value of the amount of products that get transacted.
That's the thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Like
Well,
these
yeah.
countries still live hundreds of years in the past,
Right.
Yeah.
and I suspect there's reason for that. You see, generally, the richer you are in these countries, the more you're aware.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dictatorships, which they clearly are,
Yeah.
uh, it's for the dictatorships. It makes sense for them to keep the people uneducated or non-progressive, because
Mhm.
otherwise they might start asking for human rights or better working conditions, better laws.
Hmm.
You don't want that if you're a dictatorship, so
Of course.
they're going to be held back for a while until something happens.
Hmm.
That's so interesting because I mean, I say a similar thing about life over here, right? Like, I mean, they don't want you being aware of politics or social
Yeah.
issues or civil issues. The more you know, the more you can speak out and fight against what's wrong. Now, clearly, in contrast, Canada is way more liberal and free and much more access to education than what you're describing. But it must be like 100-fold over there, right? Like, you know, the rich, they don't teach you about finances when you're young, politics, how to vote, different political parties, and they really keep us distracted here with movies and music and entertainment, and some people get hooked on drugs, and yeah, just wow. But hearing you say it like that, it seems like it's so different over there,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But wow, okay, and then so all of that,
Compared
and
to
then
here.
you come to Sackville and you experience Canada. You travel a bit in Toronto, so just tell us a little bit about the contrast, and then
Right. So between Canada and Morocco, I like in the shortest words, it's about 100 times better. And like,
I'll stop complaining.
wait, hang on. We humans, though, we do our best to get into the next stage of life.
Mhm.
By get to the next stage, I mean, make sure our life is better. Generally, that's how most people act. Not everyone, but it's a natural instinct, right? Like if you feel like something's gonna be better, you're probably gonna do that thing you think is gonna be better to do, right? Instead of the other thing, or you're gonna go to a better place than the other place, right? That's just how life, well, not life, how we evolved to be.
Mhm.
And it's not a flaw. In fact, if it wasn't for this, and I support what you're doing, like when you see issues, you should definitely speak up, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you improve as a person,
Mhm.
and how you improve as a society. And if we weren't like this as a species, then we will be nowhere near where we are right now. We probably would still be living in caves, to be honest.
the inherent desire for more.
The inherent desire for more,
And I
indeed.
don't even mean materialistic, just to be more, to achieve more, to accomplish more, to learn more,
To improve.
to be curious.
To improve and learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree.
So 100 times better.
In general, that's the shortest way to say that.
So you're liking it.
Yeah,
You're loving it. You like the people.
So the nature is absolutely beautiful. I've
Yes.
never seen nature like this in my
Don't
whole
talk
life.
to me
I'm
about
serious. I've never
nature.
seen it.
Hillary had enough nature, I think, this weekend.
I literally put a sentence out of my mouth. Oh my
The
god,
mud, you just love the mud. The mud is so amazing.
I saw. I was
The
like, oh my
rain.
god, I've seen 5 cows today. I should really consider moving back. Immediately stuck in mud, and I was like, nope. I've never missed the Toronto transit system before, but I'm like, get me on the Bloor line. I want to watch a homeless man piss in a corner. I miss the city. I miss dirt. I miss fearing for my life.
Concrete.
I miss concrete. Our concrete jungle where dreams are made of, not New York. But I'll take Toronto. I left for a reason. Apparently it was the backwoods. So I left. I'm just kidding. You love the nature.
Yeah, the nature is absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
We also got 4 seasons in here.
Which
Over there we don't have 4 seasons.
Canadians complain
Yeah.
about religiously. Yeah.
I love the winter, actually. I saw snow for the first time in my life a few
Yeah?
months ago.
Yeah.
I ran around like a little kid. I was just literally running around, and I think I even fucking rolled in the snow. So
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
As you should.
And there was this Arctic wind alerts as well. It was like negative 34
Yeah,
Celsius, I think.
That day, it was worse than that with the wind chill. It was
I
like
know.
negative
We had
Probably the
negative
40s.
50 a couple times. You did have it a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
times.
I found it incredible. Like I went outside. I mean, of course, I'm wrecking myself, but I went outside when it was that cold. The air, there was like a blue hue to it. It was stunning. It was so cold that the air looked different, and also I just really enjoyed the cold. I just
wild.
went out there.
That's so interesting to hear your different perspectives. Whereas we constantly complain about the weather, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's winter, we complain about
Yeah.
the cold and the snow. In the summer, we complain about the heat.
Every time
And,
anyone tries to
it's the
complain about the
Canadian
cold
way.
there, I'm like, you should try over the wind chill off of the ocean, and then also it's the humidity because of the ocean. Like,
Yeah.
Because I literally got out of the car today, and what did I say? I was like, why is the air thick? Like, maybe that's what started this trip off on a back foot. I should have walked onto the airport and been like, oh, Romeo
Hills are
International.
alive.
I should have like, oh, look, my people. And instead I was like, why is the air thick? Why am I breathing heavy?
All right, that's funny. Air, thick air. That's actually hilarious.
It is. The air is
Right,
heavier.
you're right.
I am a bougie bitch, and I can't breathe out here.
Oh my god.
But you know, it's pretty. It's pretty. Anyway.
Right.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, it's so interesting to hear like the fresh appreciation you have for all the different seasons and the weather and the absolute cold. Coming from Morocco, where the air it's dry. So yeah, I mean you're right. The air gets heavier when it's humid. It's harder to breathe. It's harder on the lungs. You get tired quicker.
Yeah.
But so you spent most of your life in Saudi Arabia, but you probably tell people you're from Morocco or you're Moroccan, right?
Right.
So we have a very interesting question.
Yeah.
So we often talk on this show about, the differences between being Black or from a country in Africa. To make it easy, we'll say African.
Mm-hmm.
We've interviewed many, and we talked about this before the recording. We've interviewed many people from different countries in Africa who have literally said that, before they came over to North America, they didn't even know they were Black. They were the country that they were from. Like you say, we're Canadian, they were Nigerian, Cameroonian, Somalian.
Last episode, it literally came up again.
So I wonder, like, over here, when you tell people you're African, do you ever get responses that you find are weird?
And the reverse, do people see you and automatically assume you're Black, even though you're like pigment perspective probably lighter than me? Are people just like, what are people's reactions to your existence in this country?
Right. So what I noticed is a lot of people seem to assume that if you're from Africa, you gotta be Black.
Be Black.
Yeah. It's kind of funny in my opinion. But also, people seem to be confused by my ethnicity. Like, some people literally think some people think I'm Black. Some people think I'm Caucasian. The U.S. government thinks I'm Caucasian, which doesn't really make sense. But honestly,
that does make sense to me. Because in America, if you're not Black, you're pretty much white. Like if you don't have a drop of what they would consider like slave trade blood or anywhere in Africa that's not North Africa. No, it's really easy to pass as white in America. Like, I mean, lots of people, Latino people pass as white, different places in Europe. I mean, some would say even East Indian people. They live as white. So to comment on that, but so people probably also might think you're interculturally mixed, interracial, like Hillary and myself. Do they think you're half Black, half white, possibly?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, that's it seems to be that's what most people. Well, besides that, besides the people who think I'm automatically Black, they think I'm mixed. That seems to be the most common guess, is that I'm mixed. And honestly, I don't know what I am.
Sure.
Well, and I mean that this is why we have got you here today, because we don't know what our show is anymore. We are now.
All right. Is you Black or isn't you Black?
Can you say the N-word? Just kidding, everyone. That's not going to happen here today.
No, but culturally, who knows? Like, we're all a mix of smorgasbord of different cultures from hundreds, thousands of years ago, and I think cultures probably intermixed a lot more than we imagine.
Which I think I had even said in maybe one of the emails talking about bringing you on, how that like you've got a blog about white and Black, and like it's not color, it's really grayscale, and what does all of this language really even mean? So I just think it's a great topic, conversation point.
No, it is a good topic. I mean, I would actually like to find out because most people from Morocco are ethnically. Oh, I can't pronounce the word. Ethnically, yeah. Thank you so much. Ethnically, are considered Berbers, which is like a very specific subgroup.
We both tilted our head to the side.
Very specific subgroup of
never heard that.
Race, I think.
Really?
So is it like a tribe or like an actual like a race, a tribe?
I think it's a race. I'm not sure, but yeah, like I think 90% sounds like. So I'm assuming I'm one of them. Statistically, I probably am.
Right.
But that essentially means I'm not none of the stuff people usually say, but I could also be mixed.
Right. Well, because I mean, like in theory, Caucasian is supposed to be the group of people from Mount Caucasus, and that were like we look at the breakdown racially. I think that those people tend to actually like have white skin, but might have like an eye shape that we would consider to be associated with Asian people. And like if we go into the breakdown of people, my dad's side, like there are a group of people called des Peuls who speak Wolof, but they consider that more a tribe or a subsect of Black Senegalese people. And like so I find in most conversations we get into a point where it's like about pigmentation. It's about you're African, so they assume you should be dark-skinned Black. If you're not dark-skinned Black, then they assume you are just mixed race. And they do not have a concept of the idea that there are light-skinned African people that aren't a subsect of Black or Caucasian that happen to just be Moroccan or Egyptian or whatever. Which is how we get to the point of like, so what's the show? Is the show African Lantic? Is it person of color Lantic? Is it BAPOC Lantic? Tune in next season for the rebranding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, before you answer, I mean that's what my blog was about.
Yes.
Like there is no Black, there is no white. I truly believe humans
shades
are all
of brown.
just different shades of brown. Whether you're so lightly shaded and beige that you look whitish pink, or you're so brown that you look like you're literally the shade Black. I think we're all just a spectrum of different shades of brown.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Technically, you are in the spectrum. Unless you're suffering from albinism,
Yeah.
That's the only time. I have one friend who is, but that doesn't actually mean you're different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just
genetically your skin doesn't
exactly. Yeah. And like one of the things that I didn't really understand is African American is just considered Black, but you can be African and American. You don't have to be Black. I mean, I mean, if I become American someday in the future, I'm not gonna be Black, but I'm still African American.
That's what all falls apart, right? These are just terms that are given to us.
Well, exactly. Like I think the term African American, in my mind, it's always meant that you were like part of the slave trade and went there, not so much an African in America or a Black American who could retrace your roots.
And you're also not allowed to be American.
Yeah, no, exactly. So. But also and to the point in like some of the conversations that we've had or the thoughts that I've had has been if our audience for Black Lantic is mainly white and they saw a photo of the three of us, they would see three Black people. And so for me, the reason why I was like, I don't care really where you come from, not in an I don't care sense, but I welcome you on the show, is because any white person's going to see you and assume that we are all the same, maybe even related, because they don't. I love you, white listeners, but they might not know any different, which is why I think all of these terms were created by the colonizers who were in charge of making language. And so for them, what was an African American versus a Black American? And I think they were thinking, y'all one group of people, we brought you here and we want you to be slaves. Now we've apparently given you power and we hate all of you. And would we be hated? Should we show up now? Probably.
Yes.
That's my hot take.
No, I mean, I see what you mean. That's like that's probably where the term actually came from.
Mm-hmm.
Most certainly, actually. And
the terms white and Black were sort of coined by a Portuguese writer who'd done something for the king back in the 1500s to try to justify the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, and sort of broaden the divide between white and people with lighter and darker skin. So before the 1500s, there really is no historical reference or context to humans referring to themselves as white at all. Like this is a concept that started in the 1500s with the transatlantic slave trade. And so that's a little tidbit of information there.
Yeah. Last thing I want
to say. Do people doubt you? Sorry.
You guys, was that a word?
Do people like are people met with shock or surprise when you tell them you're African? I guess.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen to me a
They
few
don't
times
believe you,
actually.
what did they say?
Yeah, I've had like I think probably like one of the most I mean like I find some ridiculous things funny. I think one of the funnier ones that I found was this person refused to believe me, if I recall correctly. Like maybe my memory is failing me a bit, but there were cases where people had a hard time believing I was African. They're like, "Yeah, you're not black." So
We knew you were gonna say that. I just wanted to hear you say that.
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm like, you know, you don't have to be black to be African.
Fair.
So
Well,
Well, I think that's part of the problem. What we've experienced a lot too is the conversation around where are you from? No, but where are you really from? So, good,
Yep.
great. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of the that language and like even me, like saying I was born in Canada and that I'm Canadian was never good enough for anyone. So you saying I'm African and people being like, sorry, where's the melanin? Where's the pigment? I don't believe you. You're not dark enough. Totally, unfortunately, checks out.
I'm going to see if I can get the battery changed on
Yeah,
the
sure,
camera. And we have about like 10 minutes left or so, but look, why don't you ask a little bit about
I want to
business
ask about
endeavors?
your soft and hard
Oh.
work. That's what I'm gonna do while Clinton delicately and carefully exits so that we can see my face, but it's not that necessary. So yeah, so when I had heard about you from Ivor through Collision, I thought that you had a business set up, and now I understand that you are just a little genius out here, offering apparently, according to your business card, software and hardware needs. So elaborate more on outside of school what you've been doing while you've been here in Sackville.
right, so as soon as I finished my terms in university,
Mhm.
well, my first, because I just finished my first year, I'm about to enter my second year.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished that, actually, even before I finished that, I made plans. The plans were to essentially network as much as possible with prospective people,
Mhm.
because you see, it's important to have experience, especially in what you're majoring in, right?
Yeah.
So I looked up the best conferences to attend.
Yes.
I made plans for how to get to them as cheap as possible.
Yeah, I'd like you to share those plans later because I heard the price you said and I was like, how?
Exactly.
But tell me later.
So yeah, I booked a bunch of flights after I got approved to a bunch of conferences. 2 of them were for free, including Collision.
Yeah.
And had 1,000 business cards. I went in there to each of these conferences, Vancouver, Toronto, and Hamilton.
Mhm.
And I just went up to people that I felt had something for me.
Wow.
Pitched myself.
It's amazing.
Told them about my previous projects. I made some really impressive projects. In total, in aggregate, they have more than 300,000 active users.
Mhm.
This is something I haven't mentioned earlier.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's part of my pitch. Is
Okay.
I made open source software that has more than 300,000 users. So I walk in there, I give them a business card. At first, of course, I talk with them, give them a business card afterwards. So I just slide into DMs, you know.
Yeah, as we all do.
Exactly.
So you've made open source software that's 300,000 users.
In aggregate,
What is
that means in combination.
Okay.
Yeah, because
okay.
I made more than one. So I made essentially 3 video games in the past. Modifications for video games.
Oh, amazing.
Exactly. And overall, it was very successful. As one of those projects, in fact,
Yes.
people were so passionate for it that I was able to recruit more than 100 volunteers, and I was able to set agendas for them, tell them, what they're going to be doing, and essentially manage this massive project, because some of those took more than a year to finish.
Wow.
They were just passion projects.
So is the goal with all of this information and having this type of backing is like, are you trying to get into like video game development? Are you trying to get more into that like hardware and software needs where, when you've got like grandma on Sackville Road who doesn't understand how to download something and you're like doing something like that? Is it more for an IT, like a bigger company? Like what's your end goal?
Okay.
We're getting
I honestly, for me,
Mhm.
there will never be an end goal, because whatever my biggest ambition is, I'm always going to aim for something bigger once I accomplish it.
Of course.
So currently, my biggest ambition, it's gonna sound a bit cheesy, is
We welcome cheese. Mike doesn't tolerate, and so is Clinton, I think, but we welcome cheese.
Full-blown dairy allergy.
Yeah, he'd die if he looked at cheese, but we welcome your cheese. Yeah, no poutine over here.
it's
Look
okay.
on.
I'll eat the cheese. I'll eat the
Yeah.
cheese. So my current biggest ambition is to.
You can't. Everyone can see me now. Cheese. Thank you.
James from
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Cheese.
So yeah, my current biggest ambition is to help humanity become a multi-planetary civilization, and this is in line with one of the richest people in that planet right now. But it's something exactly.
Okay, I understand what's happening.
Well, either way, it's my current biggest ambition, and I intend, in fact, I will make that happen before my life is over. And if I do manage to make that happen, then the next goal will be for me to help humanity become a solar civilization, which essentially means colonizing the rest of the solar system. So, and if I manage to do that, then galactical civilization. But what I'm trying to say is, my ambitions are endless.
That's amazing. I was out of the room, but we went from software and hardware company to
Basically,
developing some of the tech, developing some of the software hardware to use on spaceships or on other like settlements on other planets. Is that
it sounds like
what
you
the
want to
end
make
goal is?
robots and take over.
So
is that a good guess?
whatever I can help with when it comes to the space industry. But one of the things I'm really passionate for right now, that I want to look into even further, is interfacing robots with AI, and
Right.
maybe making that help people colonize other planets. It would be nice for them to have robots that actually can also be their companion, but also can accomplish significant tasks that will be infeasible for the astronauts living in these planets.
And eventually get into like some Black Mirror Netflix stuff where we like transfer our consciousness into these robot AI.
Perhaps.
And the possibilities are endless. Like they're fusing robotics and computers into people's brains right now as we speak, right?
That's actually interesting. So I do want to make some significant projects or some company in the future. Hopefully, something that is pioneering. And one of the ideas that I was thinking about also taking a look at is not necessarily brain shipping, but something close to that.
I hear what you're saying. That's what I was saying. Wow. This episode has been.
I'm just gonna pretend I'm on an episode of The Office and look into the fourth wall. Okay, I'm back.
We've gone in so many places in such a short time. This has been really interesting. I don't know what else to ask you. Like that's really cool. Hillary, are you speechless?
Yeah.
I know I was out of the room for a few minutes, but like, what are your after university?
Ambitionless. Just going forever.
Do you see yourself staying in New Brunswick? Are you going to Silicon Valley? Are you going to? You mentioned you might go to Toronto, Vancouver.
Yes.
So what's next for you?
Whichever place is more receptive to my ambitions. So in Canada, that would generally be Vancouver, or Toronto, or Montreal, especially for what I'm specialized in. Eventually, I might move to the States, because if you really want to work in the edge, the edge, essentially, USA is the place for that.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And yeah, that's besides that, I do want to mention too, I'm not a genius. That's something that's no, seriously, I'm not. I really am not. I have flaws. I'm not perfect. I make mistakes.
I never said I didn't believe that geniuses also didn't have flaws. You can be ultra smart and have lots of issues. That still makes you a genius.
Okay. I'm not ultra smart. What I am though is I do my best to improve myself every day. Whatever I did yesterday, I do my best to push that even further when it comes to my ambitions. And each day I do that more and more. Eventually it starts snowballing. Of course, I managed to mess that up as well. But really, it's the fact that I know my life is limited, and also I know the chance of me being born in this planet, especially with my situation is pretty much near impossible. And if there's anything I'll be ashamed of in my life, it's if I don't make a significant impact for humanity right now.
Wow.
That's what something else your smart would say.
That's the thing. Like, I generally am never ashamed, but if there's gonna be something I'm gonna be ashamed of, it'll be something like that.
Not pushing yourself to the extreme.
Exactly.
Appreciating every second that you get to be on this earth. This life is a gift, and so many of us don't get to be here, right?
True, and a lot of people, I notice a lot of people they look for their meaning in life. Like, it's almost like if it's behind a rock, or they're just gonna look around and find it. That's not how it should be. If you really value freedom, you'll be making your own meaning in life.
That's how I feel in terms of like the podcast, and like we talk, I would say often about legacy building. And while I have no Mars aspirations or intelligence to get there, you don't want to say you're super genius. I would say our strength in talking and sharing stories is like what I hope to leave as a legacy in terms of making a footprint for Black, African, melanated people of color to have existed here and like make our stories last. But I definitely agree with that philosophy that like if I left here, I see a lot of people who their biggest ambition and goal is like work till retirement, get a cottage, and then you die and you spend all of your time slaving under the government, working for the government for a pension that someone decides for you, and that's just not going to cut it for me. And that's why I'm sitting beside you.
Absolutely. No, I mean, what Black Atlantic is one of the things we do to occupy our time with. And, while we market ourselves as a Black-centric podcast, that's not all that we are. We try to uplift stories from the East Coast, from people of color, stories that don't typically get heard. When we started this in 2020, there was no one in the media ever takes the time to interview people of color in Atlantic Canada to hear their story, hear what they're doing, their why, their experience, their truth, their joys, their pains, and their sorrows. The only time people of color tended to be in the news, and that's changed a little bit since the murder of George Floyd, was to mine our pain, to talk about our trauma, to only if it's a negative experience, to through the news reach out to try to hear what people of color have to say. And even if we're making a little impact with this, it's just something we try to record, put out there in the ether, to exist on YouTube and in other places for years and years to come, just to highlight these stories of people with skin that looks like ours living in Atlantic Canada. And I think hopefully we did that again this week.
Yes, with significant delays,
Yeah.
but you've done it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for reaching out to us. So you're here in Sackville, New Brunswick. If people are interested in what you have to say or want to talk to you more, I know you went to Toronto and gave out 800 business cards. If people want to get in touch with you about anything at all after hearing this episode, what's the way they can reach you?
The best way is to go to my portfolio website. It has my email and my phone number. It's www.faycalkilali.com, which is my first name, FAYCALKILALI.com.
I'm glad you spelled that out because we are a visual podcast, but we have much more people listen to us than watch us. So thanks for spelling that out. We'll stick to the website. You probably don't want to give your phone number out.
Oh no!
It's all on there.
It's all in there.
On your
It's on the website and the business card, which I brought with me from Toronto. So hey, one of those 800 came back, but I'm taking it with me.
And you can find out about my past projects there as well. And
we have several scannable QR codes too.
yeah.
That's why I was like, this is souped up card. There's 4 QR codes. I was like, it was aggressive in a positive way.
So many people loved those cards, by the way. Like I was impressed by the feedback, actually.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Yeah, you need to use that.
Thank you.
Well, I just meant that you.
I know. I don't have my Black Atlantic card yet.
I got some custom made, and so then you were like,
I'm on it. To our listeners, thank you so much again for tuning into Black Atlantic. Huge props to everyone who is here with us today. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and like. To everyone on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, Amazon, everywhere else for broadcasting. Thank you for listening again. Please like, rate, comment on the episode.
And if
post.
you're audio listening this time, just consider clicking on the video version for the amount of effort that we got put in
Yeah.
making this look so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks to CHMA and James Anderson who helped us set up the room. But if you're an audio listener, just try clicking on it for 5 whole minutes. I beg of you. I implore you, please.
All right. We will see you next week.